Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place where we discuss all things USMNT. My name is Adrian. Joining me once again, my co-host Tocayo on this Halloween evening. Adrian, what's up, man? What are you dressed as today?
As a clown, dude, as myself, like every other day.
No,
No, not dressed as anything today. I just came back from the gym, so I'm with my gym attire, winter gym attire, I guess. Winter for
nice.
Texas, because it might not be too cold for those PPG cuz that live up north, but here is definitely cold.
Yeah, once it drops below 50, it's pretty cold for us down here. Um,
Yep.
Adrian, man, this episode, what better day to discuss it than Halloween when it's a complete clown show? We're going to be talking about the comments that were made by Jozy Altidore last week, where he pretty much just mentioned that, the. Well, I'm going to go ahead and quote him so I don't get it taken out of context. What was said was he was asked if the squad that he played with, the 2014 squad, was better than the current generation of USMNT players. And he said, quote, better is a weird word. More complete, I would say our generation, the 2014, in terms of position for position. Better talent wise, individually, I would say this 2023 one, but not everywhere, only in certain spots. If the two sides play each other at full strength, I think ours would win. So, right off the bat, do you think he's smoking something that you kind of want to get a little taste of there?
Get out of here, Altidore. Come on, man. I mean, I know that he needs to. He, like, as any other as any other bro out there, he needs to stick with his friends, right? He needs to stick with his players and stand behind them, because of course, that's what you do. But if you want to be humble and realistic about it, not even just in talent, the current USMNT is better than the one in 2014. It's just that uh, I think even cohesively speaking as a team, they just seem to be getting along way better, right? Even if you put it for not, I don't want to double too much because we're gonna get into detail, but just throwing someone new like the gun as balogun into the mix, and he seems like he's been playing with them for the longest time. So that's just a testament of how much these players know each other and how well they have cemented on Triple G's system.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to play with the fact that a lot of them grew up playing together in the youth ranks, right? And mckennie did and Dejas Pulisic, a lot of those guys just grew up together. Tyler Adams, and when they bring in new guys like Balogun, it's young. It's a young guy coming into a crowd of young guys, right? They're all Gen Z, young millennial guys that just kind of all within the 2019 to 25 age range, right? There's not really anybody, that whole division that the old crew versus the new crew, right? It's all young guys that kind of get cohesive. Good point. Let's dive into kind of the players position by position, and I guess we'll kind of decide as PPG here where we think who's the stronger roster at this point. Starting with goalkeepers, an area where I think Altidore might be correct. Back in 2014, the roster contained three goalkeepers. They had Tim Howard, Brad Guzan, and Nick Rimando. That compares to we're going to be going off the most recent squad for the USMNT here in 2023, the one that was chosen for the October friendlies. Two keepers were brought in, both Nottingham Forest keepers, Matt Turner and Ethan Horvath. Excluding Rimando, because to compare the top two, which were at the time Tim Howard and Brad Guzan versus the top two currently, Matt Turner and Horvath, I think I'd personally take the one from 2014. Tim Howard was in his prime at Everton at the time, and Guzan was playing at Aston Villa. What do you think?
I totally agree with you, man. I think this is perhaps the one area where maybe the 2014 class has, the advantage over today's USMNT, and only because Howard and Guzan were actually playing pretty much as a starter for both teams, right? Howard at Everton and Guzan at Aston Villa, and Howard, he was almost always putting a show at the Premier League level. So I'm not saying that Turner is too far away from them, technically speaking. Um, all I can say is that Howard and Bradley Goosen, when they had to take the role of leadership, right? They jump into it without any hesitation, and you know for sure that whoever was underneath those three posts was a safe bet to keep uh, the goalie intact, especially talking about Tim Howard, who we know has what a record on how many saves he made on a World Cup game or whatever.
Yeah, against
Um,
Belgium.
it's a close comparison. It's a close one, but I think the 2014 class slightly takes it over the current USMNT squad.
Yeah, I think Turner and Brad Guzan are comparable, and I think Howard was just that much better. He
Yeah,
definitely wins it
hmm
over. Um,
I agree.
in terms of defenders, man, the 2014 roster had DeAndre Edlin, who at the time, depending on when you take the roster in 2014, was his last season with Sounders, was when he jumped to Tottenham, which he obviously didn't do too well at Tottenham. He had a better career at Newcastle later in his career. Gonzalez, who played in LA Galaxy and eventually went to Liga MX and played with Pachuca and I think Puebla as well. But we're talking about his LA Galaxy days here. Matt Beasler, Sporting Kansas City. John Brooks, who was with Hertha at the time. Beasley, who was with Puebla at the time in Liga MX. And Fabian Johnson, who was, again, depending when you take this roster, early half of 2014, he was with Hoffenheim. And the second half, he was with Mönchengladbach. You compare that with the defenders that were recently called up in CCV, Carter Vickers, who plays for Celtic, Richards, Crystal Palace, Robinson, Ream, Johnson, Lund, Dest, Scally. I really don't think there's much of a comparison here. Not to crap on MLS, right? Who have produced quality players in recent times, but you have seven, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight defenders in the current squad, all of them playing in I guess except for Miles Robinson, right? All of them playing in Europe versus the squad from 2014, where it was just John Brooks and Fabian Johnson. I think there's a no brainer in the current 2023 squad takes it in terms of defense. What about you?
Yeah, man. I mean, this is a. I totally agree with you. It's difficult to make a comeback argument for the 2014 squad. I mean, if we want to be very, I guess, granular with the detail on which leagues they play, right? We all know that the MLS is not known for creating or having strong defenders, right? It's an entertaining league with too many goals, and that's because the defenders are not the best, right? And so for us to be comparing Omar Gonzalez to the likes of Carter Vickers or Richards is just, a disservice that we're doing to the entire PPG nation because there's no point of comparison, man. The fact that you have, you know, three of your maybe starting 11 players at the EPL level tells you or should at least let you know the huge discrepancy in talent and as well as competitive awareness that both squads have, right? There's a huge difference between trying to win a spot at the likes of Crystal Palace, even Fulham, when you look at when you are the top dog at LA Galaxy, Sporting KC, or even Pueblita, man. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's easy to play in Liga MX. I'm not gonna say that it's easy to play in MLS because the argument stands that if you're a pro player, you're good, right? But when you look at the whole spectrum of pro players, there's a huge difference between someone who plays at the Liga MX MLS level to those who play at the top, at the creme of the creme on Europe.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. I think the only two players that maybe get a shout in starting this 2023 roster are Fabian Johnson. He's a similar player to Dest, who we know loves going forward. I just think
Yeah.
Fabian Johnson loved going forward as well, but he was better defensively. And John Brooks, but at that time he was very young. John Brooks. Right now, John Brooks is still probably the only player that's maybe still active from this squad, from the 2014 squad, and he's still kind of always brought up in the name that hey, Triple G needs to be calling him up because he's playing well in Germany currently still, and he's still relatively young for a center back. But other than that, yeah, I agree. 2023 all the way. Midfielders, man. This one again, pretty similar to defenders. A few more names playing in Europe at the time, but still a lot of MLS names scattered through. Which again, these were the best players in MLS at the time, and the best that USMNT had at the time. At that time, USMNT wasn't known for having crazy amounts of players in Europe like they do now. So this is what they had. Bradley, he was at Roma at the starting of the 2014, transferred to Toronto FC. That's when he kind of had that long spell Toronto that he just recently announced his retirement for. Mixed Discarud, he was playing at Rosenborg. Bedoya, who was in France, and Nantes, Alejandro Bedoya. Jermaine Jones, who was at Schalke at the time. And then I think in 2014, he also, in the second end of 2014, he took a loan to Turkey at Besiktas, I think. Davis, who played at Houston Dynamo. Beckerman, Real Salt Lake. That's Kyle Beckerman. Julian Green, who was at Hamburg at the time, and Graham Susie at Sporting KC. When you compare that to the midfielders from the current generation, you got Maloney, who was recently called up in the 2023 or the October 2023 friendlies. Yunus Musah, mckennie, Johnny Cardoso, Luca de la Torre, Kevin Paredes, and Brendan Aronson. And that's not even counting the likes of Tyler Adams, right? And more that are out there currently in Europe. So I think, again, this no-brainer to 2023. I think the only real players that might have a chance here when he was in his prime, Michael Bradley was really good, and Jermaine Jones, who I think played similar role to Tyler Adams, except he was not always injured. What do you think about these midfielders?
I think definitely the 2014 class puts a stronger fight against the 2023 USMNT midfielders. When compare them to the defense, of course, I think the 2014 is like the early ages of the USMNT venturing into putting more players in Europe. I mean, as you mentioned, this is one of those areas where more European players are starting to pop up, and then they sprinkle them with some MLS players. So you can see the progression from 2014 all the way to today, which is great, right? Because it means that the USMNT is getting better at distributing talent when identified. So that's great. But that helps us to make the case for 2023, which is all of the well, I'm not going to say all of these players, but the vast majority of them play at top level teams, right? You have Yunus Musa, mckennie, uh, who play for Milan and Juventus. Cardoso plays at one of the big, maybe not one of the big teams in Brazil, but he plays for a very competitive team in Brazil and playing in Brazil. So to me, it's like playing at the likes of maybe Belgium or Portugal in the in the in Europe, right? So maybe sometimes even more difficult to play in Brazil than on those two countries. But I think, as I said, more challenging to make a decision here. I'm gonna side with 2023 just because of what we have seen. I'll be lying if I say that I recall a match for the 2014 class with all of these players, but yeah, I think the advantage on this specific area of the pitch stays with 2023, and man, I mean, it's just someone needs to give. Well, I don't know if Altidore's just retired because he was with Puebla up to maybe this summer. But at this point in time, if he's listening to PPG, he should be getting a reality check and realize that there's no freaking way 2014 is better than 2023.
I think he was with Puebla in 2022, but I think he went back to the New England Revolution and he just got released, I think. Um, but yeah, he might just be depressed that he doesn't have a team right now and just talking out his butt, man. But
Yeah.
let's wrap it up here. Forwards, the 2014 class had Clint Dempsey, who was at that time already done with his European spell. He was at Seattle Sounders. Eddie Johnson, who was at DC United. Wondolowski, who was at San Jose Earthquakes. And Altidore, who at that time was playing a horrible spell with Sunderland, where I think he scored one goal in like 43 caps. Horrible time in the EPL. That was after he played really well with AZ Alkmaar, and he got that big move to Sunderland. But yeah, I mean, those four forwards were the ones that were called up at the time. In 2023, you had the likes of, in October, Pepi, Florian Balogun, Christian Pulisic, timweah. and Sendejas. Sendejas went in and replaced Malik Tillman, who got injured right before the October friendlies. So still a lot more players for the USMNT in 2023 that were in Europe that are not even called into the squad that could walk into the 2014 squad. I think this forward lineup here is 2023 all the way. Maybe Dempsey can find a way to get into this 2023 lineup, but even then, that's difficult. There's just too much talent in the 2023 squad. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And if you look at the names, right, you can see the big difference in style of play and what the USMNT has evolved into, right? You no longer have those big, strong guys like Wondolowski, even clintdempsey to play as forwards. Now you have more. I'm gonna say nimble, but more, I guess, athletic and also strong, but not necessarily physically. Um, um
Like imposing,
I
yeah. They're
guess
more they're more
imposing exactly. Yeah,
smaller
but
guys,
I
yeah.
mean, come on, man. I mean, even at, even if you take Altidore at his best with Sunderland, he would just replace Sendejas, right? Same thing with Dempsey. If you take Dempsey at his peak with Seattle Sounders, he wouldn't replace Sendejas. There's no way that they can replace timweah, pulisic, balogun, pepi. I mean, even Sendejas, just for this last October roster, he got lucky that Tillman got injured. It's
Right.
just very it's I don't have the arguments. I don't even have the will to go out and live and fight for any of these players. I really seriously don't understand why Wondolowski was kept on calling up, and that just goes to show that the USMNT didn't have any strikers available if Wondolowski was one of the reserves, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, right now you have a full deck of strikers. If you want to take one of these, man, even Sargent takes a spot ahead of any of these other strikers.
Right.
You know, yeah, Daryl
I
Dike,
would
who's injured.
what do you take, Jesus Ferreira or Wondolowski?
Oh man, that's a tough one, but I'm gonna say Jesus Ferreira. At least he scored
Wow.
against the small teams.
At least he's captains of the Caribbean there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, no, but I agree with you, man. I just think the 2023 squad is too stacked to even make this a comparison. I do not know what Jozy Altidore was on that day, but maybe he was celebrating Halloween a couple of days early. But
I'll have what
yeah,
he's having.
yeah, I'll have what he said for sure. Um, well, I mean, that's it, man. That's our comparison. I think most of our PPG fans and listeners will agree with us here that there really is no comparison there. Adrian, man, as we wrap up, dude, where can our listeners find us, brother?
Hey man, they can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter at Puro Pinche Gol. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, be sure to follow us and let us know in the comments. We definitely like interacting with you guys down there. Who do you think from the 2014 squad makes it on the 2023 squad, if anybody? I think the real big one that Adrian and I kind of agreed would be Tim Howard. But other than that, do you think we're wrong? Do you think anybody else here kind of walks into the 2023 squad? Or is the 2023 squad just completely, way better than the 2014 one? Let us know for sure in the comments below. And, like I said, we like talking to you guys down there for sure. Adrian, man, another good episode with you, brother. See you in the next one. Happy Halloween.
Take it easy, my friend. Happy Halloween.
Likewise, brother. See you, man.